Shit.
Hey,
Hi, hon. Hey.
hey, we're back on. I mean, I'd have to say for myself, it has been quite the ride this last week. And we were talking about this a little bit beforehand on connection and relationships. And for me, too, is trust and the overwhelm, because my trust and overwhelm had been with the connections that I had. So it's a good topic to bring up. How do you feel about that?
It is. Yeah, definitely. When you said it, I was like, oh, I have questions. I always like to break down what that means to people, like when they're representing that, because trust is such a big word, and I suppose it's got so many facets to it. So, in some ways, I'm a very trusting person with the universe, with my higher self, with allowing things to flow. But then, in the same respect, like we was just saying, I like to have some form of clarity, and I like to have some form of like grounding and knowing of like, what does this mean? What does this look like? And so, sometimes to trust in the unknown, I'm kind of good at, but I'm kind of not good at it at the same time. So, that's why I wanted to ask what it meant to you, like, what does that actually mean? What does that look like, trusting in the unknown? Because I think it means different to everybody, no?
Sure does, and I appreciate you
Mm.
asking that because it's meant so many things to me. And first off, I want to say, like, if I bring in the actual vibration of trust right now and everything it's been perceived in my reality, it's been bastardized. So I didn't like to use that word. I was like, nah, screw
Yeah.
that. I'm not working with that in and of itself because like it's been so placed in lack, I would say, for me.
Hmm. Hmm.
Like trust it,
Yeah.
it turns around, it's out of control, whatever the case is. It's a religion related. I don't know. So I'd have to say, like coming back into a trust in self was for me, if I break it down, it's me taking ownership for myself and having companionship with my inner child and my body and my soul. Like I would say that
Oh,
do I have the ability to be in partnership and surrender to each of those facets, um, and take a step with that.
interesting. That's interesting because that is a totally different like narrative on it, on that word. And maybe surrendering is a better word, like we said earlier, like you also said, because surrendering does flip the narrative from giving something away.
Yep.
Whereas when you trust, for me, it feels like an exchange. It's like you're having to give away a sense of something, a part of you, a vulnerability part of you, a sacred part of yourself that maybe we are not allowed to give that away at some point in our inner self. Because, like you say, maybe the trust or the surrender is actually listening to those inner parts of self that say, maybe it's not safe to show that person this part. And maybe that's the trust and peace. So yeah, I think that's a really cool breakdown of what these words mean and stuff like that. Because yeah, I suppose when I think about it, it's like when I used to go wild swimming all the time,
Uh-huh.
and I had a deep fear of water, which was hilarious for someone who fell in love with wild swimming. But I had a deep fear of open water, like
Yep,
the
yep.
ocean, rivers, lakes, all of it. I was deeply afraid, and yeah, I really had to face that and literally trust, surrender to the unknown in terms of like when you just take that first step out and you actually start to swim, there's like a million emotions going on. Your body is going into pure fight or fight. Like, why are you doing this? You're panicking, you're cold, you're then afraid. I am because I'm afraid of the water or what's in the water or what I don't know, and all these other things, these unknown factors going on. And I just think to myself, you can do this. Like you can do this. And it's just that pushing through and finding one singular narrative amongst all of the other narratives that are there. They do exist. They're not just on mute. They
Sure.
are shouting at me, get the fuck out of the water. What are you doing? And I'm like, no, no. And I just center into a point of, no, you can do this. This is what you're doing. And then I just find that peace moment and push through and actually swim. And then when I find that rhythm in the water swimming, then it's like joy, freedom,
Right.
liberation, all this such powerful emotions, which if I'd have just walked by the side of the water or even got in and got out when I got them feelings of panic and fear, then I would have never experienced that. I would have never experienced what it felt like to push past that unknown feeling, to kind of push past the the barrier of that fear of the unknown, you know. And I remember every single time I do it, it never got less scary. I still felt scared. I still felt that fight or flight. I still felt that moment. And if I'd go to a new place or a different place of swimming, or there was someone around, that, you know, all the different factors would trigger different levels of anxiety. And every time it was a test to just push through the unknown and push through those factors and find a little base point. And on some days, I didn't manage to push through as far as others because I wasn't feeling as like physically, mentally strong. You know, my body was feeling some days tired and less powerful and less empowered, or I was on my own, or, you know, whatever the case was. And some days I didn't get as far out and I didn't feel as much joy. You know, some days I go a little bit out and thought, actually, no, I am going to get out. And I went back. But each time taught me something different. Right. Every single time I went swimming. And so that's kind of my analogy. You know, I love my analogies, but this is my analogy for this experience. It's kind of a case of, you know, we all have the fear. It doesn't not exist for us, you know, and over time, the more you master it, it gets easier to find that one channel. But I do think that as long as you're still human, as long as you've still got a nervous system and a self-defense system, your body is going to feel those emotions. That's part of being human. It's part of survival, you know. And so it's just learning how to channel one focused mind. And for me, it's applying that knowledge to emotional and mental things rather than just physically going swimming, you know, because you kind of mastered that one, but I've yet to master the fear of the unknown in the emotional world and what those potential consequences might look like in my personal or, you know, immediate vicinity. Like, what does that look like to me? And that's still very unknown, and that still makes me feel really uncomfortable. And so it's applying the same wisdom to alternative scenarios.
I appreciate that perspective so much. And from like how I'm perceiving that is like taking a tiny step and focusing on whatever type of point you want to. This is what I do too. I focus on a singular point. And it can take a while to do that because the nervous system right off the bat is like, no,
literally.
I'm not.
Say what now?
Exactly. And it takes a while. For mine, it's heights. It used to be heights. I just did not.
You're not going to do that either.
Was not a thing for that. And so it's really cool because I took it really slow too. And I mean, over years and years of like, what does a height mean to me? Like, what am I actually afraid of? Like, what happens if I do fall? You know, and some of it was really cute because it's like, oh, I'm just gonna get back up. Cool. Like, no, you know, that was my focus point. But I noticed the other day I went up to the mountains and I was just doing some meditation and I went into a cold plunge. And I got out and I was running and jumping on these roots that were on the side of the trail. And I was swinging off these trees and coming back and like was super excited about it. And I stopped for a second. I was like, I would have never been able to do that.
Yeah, powerful.
A while ago. It was powerful. Like I was not terrified at all. And it was off the side of a cliff, really. And like I did it a few times and was not even thinking that it was off the side of a cliff. Like it just didn't even like register until I was done. And I was like, so we would have never been able to do that.
That just happened.
Yeah, it just happened. It just happened. And I broke it down for myself and my body. I'm like, okay, well, what was that it was working its way through? And it was the pure joy aspect of it that I focused on versus the fear. And so that was like my focal point and like my inner child being super excited because she actually loves swinging off trees and she loves certain aspects of heights and trusting that facet of it because she was excited made the whole story shift for trust.
Beautiful. So. Yeah, and I really liked that story too because part of me is still thinking, oh, I don't know if I'd have had that much confidence, but it is because sometimes I'm not, like we were talking about before, I'm not always able to just stay in the joy without analysing and being like, well, is this safe? Is this right? You know, I call it my mum mode brain, but it was there way before being a mum. I was the mum of the group, you know, for everyone around me, and everyone else had kids and I'd be bringing the sandwiches and the sun cream for their kids because they'd forgotten or whatever, you know, and it was like that pre-thought, you know, I was always the little mama bear of the group, and, you know, so it is that awareness, I suppose, in mind, which is a beautiful thing, but I think it brings challenges sometimes, you know, like not being able to fully sit in that joy and sit in that inner child without feeling extremely uncomfortable because it's such an unfamiliar energy for me. Like I can experience fun and joy, but on certain terms. You know, it's like when I'm out dancing or when I'm wild swimming or, you know,
Yep.
in certain energies in ceremonies, or, you know, they're like my allowed times of joy. And don't get me wrong, I experience joy throughout the day through music, but
Sure.
it's a different type of joy. It's like happiness and joy rather than like inner child joy. You know, there's a difference between excitement and playfulness and childish energy. Like I very rarely go to that frequency because it's not felt able to exist in me since being a child, most likely, and, you know, teenager, adult. And so it is such an unfamiliar energy that I actually don't know how to even navigate it. It just feels extremely uncomfortable. And like the inner judgment and the inner shame is like, oh no, I can't act like that. Or it's like, I don't know, it's just such a big thing. Like it's a whole deal. But, you know, it ties really to even like, you know, into plant medicine ceremonies. I am, one of my biggest things is I don't allow myself to lose control, or whatever you want to call it. Like I like to be in the body. I like to be in the experience. And it's most likely because I don't want to be out of control in a way that I can't be perceived, like I can't be in navigating that energy, you know. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
I don't know
like
if I'm explaining
body,
it right. Yeah.
like having, yeah, no, it totally makes
Yeah.
sense. Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say like with plant medicine, see, for me, like I do the same thing, but I wouldn't call it control. I would call it like I'm actually in my experience. Like,
Yeah.
like
Well,
I'm gonna be in my
yeah.
experience. I would I would say like I've had the perspective of like that's control. You want to like, you know, relax, you want to let it take you where it's going to take you. And I'm like, no, because here again is my thing is like all of that is so constant for me. Like I don't need to be in that 24/7. What isn't is that like I'm in this beautiful body who wants to hold it. Like she wants to be in perspective. And so to be able to just work with the body and be like, no, I'm going to be here right now, which also means that as the body's experiencing, I'm going to go through like the deepest, darkest shit. Right?
Oh, wow, that actually gives me a whole different perspective on it, you saying that, you know, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
I really like that. Yeah. Sorry,
Yeah.
didn't mean to cut you off. Didn't know if
You
you
know,
was
you're
finished.
good. You're good. It's like giving myself permission. I was talking about this the other day where I was sitting with somebody and just being present with them. And you know, they had some deeper stuff come up. And I was like, give yourself some freaking permission to let that, whether it's murderous, whether it's like just, you know, that really deep part come up and experience it and go through the eye versus like you know, it's there and like, you know, it's not, it's feeling a little bit dark and I can just transmute it. I'm like, you could try, you can do whatever you want to do. Don't get me, this is an infinite possibility. And also from my perspective, if I have a part like that and I'm like, say I'm sitting in plant medicine and I have like a dark sorceress that comes up or something like that, I'm gonna like meet it and be like, hey, I'd like to play with you. Let's
Interesting. Okay.
let's have a
Okay.
dance with this right now because obviously it's an aspect of me. I'm not going to deny it. It's
Yeah.
reality. It's a
Yeah.
part of
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what is she saying and how deep do we want to go? And does that mean emotion? Yes. Does it mean grief? Yeah, absolutely. Does it mean alchemy? Yes. That part might not want to be a part of me anymore and it wants to shift into something else. But at the end of the day, I'd rather go through the eye, whatever it looks like, to embody that piece of myself. So I'm not just like, you know, sitting, I know there's that dark piece of me right
Bypassing.
now. Yep.
Yeah.
It's real uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna
I get that. No, that makes a lot of sense. And you made me think about quite a few different things there, because I always thought it was actually avoiding the experiences by trying to be in the body, but maybe it's actually the opposite, like you just explained, because I always thought, is it a fear of leaving the body? That's probably why I use the word control, because, you know, obviously my whole life, I knew there was more and there was other things. I struggle with the words, not just for YouTube, but I also don't like to tap into certain frequencies, as you know. So that's why I'm speaking in code for anybody that's wondering. I'm like, let my frequencies, right. Words are spelling, so be careful what we spell. So yeah, I was aware of the other energies around, different frequencies, higher and lower, for a long time, but not knowing what they were. And I was never drawn to do anything as a teenager other than drink a little bit of alcohol and then smoke a little bit of smoke when I was older. And that was it. Like I genuinely never felt drawn to do anything else until going into my 20s when I found the little ceremonial shrooms. And that was the only thing I'd ever felt energetically connected to as well, because I felt like there was something telling me you cannot lose control of your body, whatever word you want to call it. You cannot leave the presence
Sure.
of your energetic vessel, because it felt not safe for a really long time. And I've seen people out that took different substances that were not in their body then. Like I watched their soul check out for a little bit, like just take a back seat while they were going and doing what they're doing. And I got told I am not allowed to do that at any given time. Like it just felt like an unsafe thing to do without having the knowledge of how to come back, how to tether your soul, how to connect, how to clear energies, how to do, all these different layers of things. And I didn't know any of that growing up as a teenager. When I got to my early 20s that I learned that stuff. And so, long story short, I've had only 2 experiences in my life where I've ever felt like not in control of my body, and that was with ceremonial shroomies. But I had the most extremely beautiful one and then an extremely terrifying one. And so I had the yin to the yang. I had both the positive and negatives. And I think for me, one of the biggest things I ever got taught was you have to allow yourself if you're wanting to go, which I was kept wondering, why can everyone around me experience things and then I could not even experience anything? And I was like, why have I got this block? It's clearly a spiritual energetic thing, and I've met other people that experience this. So this might give a few answers if you are one of these people that can take something and not see or do or experience anything, and everybody else is floating around talking to the trees and you're like, what now? Like yeah, it's I've definitely experienced that so many times, and I was like, there's something wrong with me, but there was not something wrong. It was my inner self not allowing any experience. And so when I sat with the inner child, like you say, that's why we're going back to the whole original point of the trusting word and the surrendering. It was sitting with those aspects of me and asking, what is going on with you that makes you feel like you can't experience anything, and that's when I learned that you don't have to experience this whole wild not be in your body at all every time you have a ceremony. Like you can be present in your body and you can enjoy that and you can journey with that and still be fully present and still feel like you're representing yourself in the way you want to represent, and not feel like, people call it the beer fear. Like when you've been on alcohol and you don't remember what you've done and then you feel like you're being stupid and whatever. I don't know, I've never had experience because I've never even allowed it with alcohol either. So it's something I've had a limit with. But yeah, anyways, the point is that limitation to go, I feel that is a spiritual and mental like choice. It's a conscious choice, and it's also based on whether you feel safe in the environment, whether you feel safe around the people, whether you can be vulnerable. All these aspects matter when you're going into ceremony. And when I actually finally allowed that self to a journey, it was genuinely one of the most beautiful things ever. And again, the next time, the most terrifying. But then since that, I've also not felt drawn to do it since. And I've journeyed, but not in that way. I don't feel drawn to journey in that way at all because it feels too overwhelming a little bit. And I always find it interesting that I can talk this work and do this level of energy work, but yet then in the physical realm, if you present me with something that's just slightly out of my comfortable zone as the human and how I want to be in my human, it just completely freaks me out. And I kind of reflect that question back to you. If you experience similar things, is that like a human block, a human trauma thing, or is that like a fear-based thing, or is that, like you say, a wanting to experience it in a certain way? And just, like what would you give a reflection to anyone that's also, because I always think, is it just me being afraid and not because I don't like my inner child being fully free and I'm afraid of how maybe people will see me in that energy? Is that why I don't allow myself to go? Or is it a choose to experience it differently kind of thing?
Sure. I mean, I think that's a broad perspective for anybody in their own experience. And I've experienced it that way too. I've experienced both ways. I experienced leaving, I've experienced
Yeah.
coming back, I've experienced it fully in my body, and I've played back and forth a little bit, and then just grounded into liking my experience where it's at and not needing that to go into any type of place or space. Um, I would say for those of you who are watching this and you're kind of in the space of integrating your human, and that's what I'd say, like working with your human, being in the human and the facet of what the human wants. The way it experiences is something to very much so be in an embracing of. So if you take some plant medicine and you sit with it and you're not experiencing anything, I would say that is exactly what your body's wanting to do right now. And
Hmm.
that's okay. And that might mean, yeah, that might mean there's judgment there. There might mean like it's a little afraid to experience other things. And also, like, there's nothing wrong with that experience right there. I think that is one of the most beautiful experiences is being super present in, like with medicine.
Yeah.
Like it is like I have done probably more of my work being present in my body than having an offshoot. And for me in my background,
Yeah.
go ahead.
No, I was thinking, yeah, I agree with that in different ways. When I'm physically processing it, it's like you can real time integrate it.
Yep.
Sometimes when I've had an offshoot experience, it takes me sometimes weeks, months to process that
Yep.
overall experience. So I totally agree with that. But I've sometimes learned more in one session from an offshoot because there's so much more
Right.
capacity to
Right.
kind of, more less limitation of the human. It's
Sure.
because you're kind of out there, so then you can come back with more, but it takes longer to integrate back.
It
Does that
can,
make
very
sense?
much so. Yeah, yeah. I
Mm-hmm.
know like when I was younger and even into like my deep shamanic phases, I would have like a guardian with my body if I were to go experience in other places.
Yeah,
And then of course like coming back, I did that when I was little. And then when I was in the deep shamanic work, like I trusted my body and where I was at if I needed to go. And then I always made sure that she knew like what the landing was, like what it looked like, what it felt
yeah.
like, so that my energy could come back in. Did it take longer to integrate? You betcha. There was so much information, and my body was like, I'm gonna just, I don't know.
I really don't feel like you can explain that feeling. Like I once came to my friend the next day and I was like, I have no words to explain this experience. Like, there genuinely was no words for that. So I still struggle now, and this is like 4 years later. I still don't have words for that experience. It was one of the most profound experiences, and what the most hilarious thing about it was, but actually genuinely mind blowing, was this whole lifetime happened. So and this whole life experience and this and that and this and that and this journey and this and this and this and this and this and this and this. And then we went outside and then we was back inside and then we back on the couch and then we sat down and then I looked at the time and it felt like, no joke, 3, 4, 5 hours maybe.
Yep.
45 minutes. And I was like, nah. I was like, this is not human. I genuinely had no words to explain that we just time warped. Time warped of university. Like,
Totally.
if I needed any tangible proof that time was not real, which I really did not need much, that was it, because I genuinely roamed to worlds and back and like literally spent so much physical time though doing different physical activities. That's what got my brain like being upstairs, being in the kitchen, being in the living room, went outside, went back up the street, went and then you're telling me after all these hours that it was 45 minutes. I was like, that's not right. This is not okay. And my human really had to process that experience. But it was the time I met source energy for the first time and probably for the only time in the physical body. And wow, every time I think about it, I still get emotional when I experience that energy for the reminder time. It sounds silly, but love is not a word that covers it. It's like just pure. You'll know, obviously, but it's just
There is
pure.
literally no words that we
No,
could ever get to. I know.
whisper.
It's like that. My first big experience with that, I remember it when I was little, but she, like, my little self already knew it, so it, like, wasn't any different.
Mm,
She was like, "Yeah,
yeah,
I already know that." And then I went through my programming stage and like the shutdown stage, and when I had my first near death, and went back into that space, I was there for days. Like just something like
wow.
you had like days, and like it was so long that I was there. I learned so much and came back, and it was 6 minutes. 6.
No,
Yep.
no. So you had one of them too,
Yep.
one of them time traveling experiences. It's just mind blowing though, isn't it? Like you just think, I was like, my dad told me a story where he went, and this wasn't even a ceremony, this was a dream. And he said he was there for a week. He was held captive by some witches in a cabin for a week. And he said, I was counting the days and the days and the days and the days. And he said, then he woke up and it was one night dream. And he was like, hey, he was convinced he'd been gone 7 days. He kept thinking about the cat not being fed, and I was like, wow, that is real deep, like to think that the cat's not being fed for 7 days. Like that was really, you really thought he was there for a week. Like that is insane, you know. But I still feel like a part of me is processing them experiences and always will be.
Oh, totally.
Because they are so non-human. And trying to integrate that into a human. I was with a friend that I don't speak to now, and I wasn't a mum then, and she was a beautiful little 3-year-old little earth angel starseed. She was beautiful, and she said to me, Anya, I don't know how I'm expected to go be a mum after this. And now being a mum, I totally get it. I was like, if that would have been like last night, and then you expected me to get up and go make breakfast, I'd be like, say, well, now, you know, like the experience that we gained, the otherworldly experience and the knowing and expansion. Like I'd been doing spiritual work for years, but the sheer amount that I gained in one night, and for me it was confirmation. I knew a lot of it. I'd seen it, knew it, theorized it, got the gist. But then when I saw it, like physically, it was like, oh damn, I understand now. It was not like a theory anymore. It was tangibly. I just got it. Oh, I keep doing that. It's really annoying. I keep knocking the microphone. But yeah, I get me excited because I think journeying is so individual and so unique. And as much as I was saying I have my little fears about it, I do, but I find I still push through it. Like we were just saying, going back to the beginning, original point is pushing through them. You know, I could have had that. I had the beautiful one, and then I had a really terrifying near-death experience. That when you said that, I was like, yeah, that's exactly what I would call it. That's exactly what I went through. And yeah, that took years to process, absolutely years. And I've actually never journeyed fully since then. So I'm still processing that now. And that was a good few years ago. And so things sometimes happen the way they need to happen. And I trust and surrender to my current relationship with plant medicine is a microdosing one. And I'm okay with that. You know, I'm not in a rush. And I think that's the point. You know, I don't feel the need to do ayahuasca or DMT or all these other big mother healing herbs. I'm not saying they aren't fantastic for some people. I think they truly are. And maybe there'll be a time where I am called to ceremony and journey, but now is not that time for me. And it's not been that time for a long time. I've not ever felt called with them specific ones. And I think it's really important to listen to that, your body, your inner self, rather than, you know, just, oh, everyone's doing it. There's a big hype. There's a retreat over there. Like actually ask yourself, are you ready for this? Is this what your inner self is bringing forth? Because just because it's been mentioned doesn't mean that, oh, it's been mentioned, I'm meant to go. Maybe you'd be a question to ask yourself a little bit more about what's right for you.
Yeah, it's a very personal journey, and for me, I've done all of those. I've also served all of those. I've been in it for a very long time. That was like a big part of my identity. That is like now not, and it came in just really strong that that's just not where I am right now. I don't think that like I've already worked with them. The thing is with those two is like they always take you back to that same point of source.
Right.
Like it's the same thing every time. And for me I'm like, I already know that. So if I already know that, my body was like, we're not doing that anymore. We're not serving anymore. We're not going back to it. It's for us now to like fully embody it and create what we want and allow that to come in now. We don't have to do any of that anymore.
Yeah, that's interesting. And maybe that's why there is a resonance with wanting to be in the human and wanting to physically experience it and wanting to be more present. Is because, you know, like you say, like we said ourselves, we do a lot of the astral work, and we know in our souls that we've done and been doing that for so long. And we waited so long to come into this human experience in this way, like not in time sense, but we had such a lot of energy built into having this experience in the human that a lot of our souls are kind of so engrossed in being in the human. And again, I love plant medicine. I think it's wonderful, but I think finding the right time, balance, amount, people, all them things are the biggest factors of using plant medicine. And if you're going to do it, make sure you're not rushing the experience to force things. Like, make sure it's just a natural call rather than I have to learn this, I have to get to this next bit, I need this, da, 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 da. Like, it
have this
needs to be.
experience. This is where, my friends are doing it. Like, I've been in all of those cycles and circles and worked with it. And it's just a very personal call. And I would say anybody who's like, well, who's like looking into that, feel how much into your body, like does your body actually want to do it? Do you feel like that's something that's in flow with you, or are you trying to get an outside perspective versus an inside perspective? The medicine in and of itself, like anytime I had a call for it, I would take it on a very personal level, or take it out to the forest or something like that, where I could have a good interpersonal work with it. So it just depends on, because once you get into groups and stuff like that, it could be a whole other story, right? So
With the energies going on.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
we've got enough with his own shadows. We don't need to deal with every motherfucker else. Like, we've got like
Exactly.
a wall full of shadows, and you're like, oh damn, no thank you. No thank you.
Yeah, no, I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. Yeah. So
But then on the other respect, they can be beautiful ceremonies.
for sure.
Like,
Absolutely.
we retreated in Spain and we had a microdose ceremony in group, and it was beautiful. It was actually, I was facilitating there, and it was absolutely beautiful. And everyone was of the right vibration. I think that's the key. I think when you've got facilitating where you've kind of orchestrated the energies to everyone being in alignment to, when you preemptively set that intention, so the space is already set for that experience. And so that experience was such a divine flow, and everyone's energy in group was aligned with each other, and there was no, shadows or anything like that. It was very powerful. But I definitely think that without that, I don't know if I'd struggle with the word shaman for myself, because it wasn't something I ever went in and trained to do.
Sure.
And a lot of the other things I kind of consciously learn in my human, whereas that I just kind of figured it out along the way. It was just like, all right, these guys are doing this, they're not doing it right, let's kind of host a little group and let me set the space, let me protect the space, let me put some crystals out over here, let me make sure I'm awake to watch them, and and then it just became like someone else was like, oh, my shout, I was like, oh, I think I do that actually. But it wasn't, I didn't even know what that word even meant. It was something I'd been doing for a year or so, but not even knowing what it meant. And that was even sometimes I was explaining and holding space for someone else's journeys before I'd even ever touched certain plant medicines. And so it was definitely an inner calling, of translating and holding that space between worlds. And I think a lot of us that are of that more conscious, I hate these ego words, but you know what I'm saying, have more awareness in the human from the remembrance of their soul, because some of us do, and I suppose it's just like we were going back to the original point, surrendering that you are exactly where you need to be, learning what you need to learn in the way you need to learn it, in the vibes, and if you get in the call for plant medicine, it'll probably come more than once, it'll probably come in multiple ways and mention, and you might see it on there, and you might see the imagery somewhere. It'll be brought to you for a reason if you're meant to be drawn towards it. So just have an open heart.
Yep. Have an open heart, be really in tune with yourself. And honestly, too, I'm going to just bring in, if it's something that's super exciting too, because that's going to bring in the right vibes of people. I've found myself, if it's super exciting and you're really heart-based, then the right vibrations of the medicine will come into the space. So, whatever you guys decide to do.
I'm laughing at when me and you. Yeah, beautiful. I was laughing when me and he was journeying together, and we was like, oh my god, what's this? Look at this, look at it, look at it, look at it, look at this. And it was like,
we're in it so deep. We're like, oh.
Oh damn. Crystal was looking like, what the fuck?
She was like, I don't know what you're doing, but this is nice.
When you said that, then when you was like, just listen to your heart, I was like, oh, that was so funny, because it wasn't like a normal journey I'd had before, because obviously me and you it was like, once I went to that level and you were at that level, it was unstoppable and spacious. And I think that's the thing with me. I'm very much a vibe matcher. Like where you're at, I'll kind of vibe match the energy where we're at, But with you, because your energy is like, it was like, okay, let's go. And it was such an exciting time. And
that is,
I think
it
was fun.
Because then it's like, we know exactly where each other is at, and then it's just creation. That's the best.
Yeah, for sure. But that was so funny. And I remember when we got that text, and I was like, no way. such a recognition. Like the humor was like, oh damn, that's correct. So yeah, just finding people to journey with, either that are aligned in the physical or the spiritual realms too. It is like you say, that excitement is part of it, you know.
Yeah.
No matter what your age, we all have an inner child within that, like we've been talking about, that is allowed to have fun. Some might let theirs out more than others, like me. Some might be still working on that. And, you know, like I said, my inner child very much has a place, but she has kind of, it's on certain time schedule, I'm not going to lie. And that's what's the problem. You know, she exists and I fully connect with her in the spiritual realms, but in the physical body, it is on different time schedules, especially being a mum. It's just one of them things right now. And I'm surrendering to that. That's exactly how it's meant to be right now as well. And I'm aware on what things might be a little bit uncomfortable that I'm working through. So yeah, I think that's all part of the journey, is just trusting and going with it.
It is. It is. And for me, I would say at least over this last year, it was allowing that inner child to be fully present and letting the excitement be there. Because I'm a very like excited person, and that was the part that I slammed down a lot. And so is my inner child. So to have her be front and be like, I'm just excited to get up today and it's an exciting day, I'm gonna draw. I'm like, okay. And sometimes that takes us into very emotional places. But even with that, and I go deep with it,
Yeah.
there's still her being present, being like, but I'm still excited about my existence right now. And that makes it really beautiful for me, because that was something I shut down for such a long time.
Yeah, that's really beautiful, actually. And I think that gives me a different perspective on it, because I think that's what I'm grieving right now. Literally was sat there yesterday in the bathroom thinking, I so miss the days where I woke up and painted, where I just woke up and painted because I felt like painting, you know, because now it's like I have to schedule free time. And so when that free time comes, I might not want to fucking paint. You know, it might not be a thing my inner child wants to do then, or my inner self wants to do. And so I've lost that ability to have flexibility and freedom, or to just do my own thing that my own inner child wants to do. I have to obviously tailor to two other little tiny children that have bigger prioritizing needs. But I feel like my inner child is really grieving right now of not having that free time, because maybe I didn't have the expressive fun, if you will, in like a silly way, but I was very free in that way, like get up and just do what I felt like doing because I felt like doing it, you know. And I loved to do that, and I very much grieve that at the moment. It's all structure and routine, which my 3 year ago self would cringe at very much. I'm not a structured and routine kind of guy, but it's the only thing keeping me sane right now. So I'm just rolling with
it. Yeah. That makes sense. And also much appreciated for like where you're at. I just love it when you express yourself, because it is
I'm just like, yeah, it is what it is. But it's true, because
I really hate routines.
Yeah, oh, I hate it. I actually, anyone that knows me will laugh at that, because I am the least routine and structured person, and I have to so swallow my ego when I have to admit how much it's benefiting me right now, because it is really benefiting me, having a routine, knowing when I'm going to be getting time to work, when I'm going to be getting time to have certain, you know, plans. Making a lot of plans and having a lot of things on the agenda is good for me right now, because if I just have too much unplanned time, it feels overwhelming, and it feels really like overwhelming to the nervous system. You know, two babies crying, dogs barking, stuck in the house, can't get out, it just gets overwhelming. So having a routine and structure and plans in place mean that I wake up with more of an intention, and I wake up with more of a focus, and then I'm more productive, because I feel like, because there's so much to do, I just get really bad ADHD burnout and don't do anything instead of just stressing out about not doing all. And so having the list, having the organisation, having the routine, all them things, it really, I hate to admit, but really is helping, and it really is working. So I'm open to admitting that and doing what works for now, but it just feels unnatural to my nature. Like, I am such a fuck it and see kind of guy, you know, like, let's figure this out. Like,
go this way.
You know?
Yep.
Yeah, literally, let's go this way. I literally let Phoenix decide where we're going as walk, because he just points, and I'm like, okay. So I just follow him around the walk, you know, because that's how I like to live life. But I just don't feel mentally able to do that at this current time. And I'm sure as they get a bit older and it's less physically intense, then I'm sure that will ease up a little bit. But this current season, this is what I found to be working. And I remember thinking years ago, people that say, oh, they don't have time to do the spiritual stuff, surely you'd have time, like surely you can just do it while you're like making dinner. No, you don't have time. You don't have time. I was just like, you don't have time. And then I settled to the idea this morning that that's maybe okay, because it only lasts like a year or two in that first chapter. Because even now, Fee's getting older, I feel like if I didn't have a new baby, there would be far more time than I was having last year, you know. So the time will return, and I guess it's just being comfortable with knowing that things are okay to kind of come and go. And there is no set, like, you have to do it this way. You can let that routine of being free and doing your spiritual stuff and meditating all the time and astral prep and blah, blah, blah. That can go for a little bit, but it will return if it's meant to, and it's not clinging on to things, you know?
Yeah, yep. I think that's another piece to all this is like, can you detach from a routine or a habit or what you think should be, how things should go with the flow? Because things do, they enter and they leave all the time. Like sometimes I want to have more structure. Sometimes I don't. A lot of times my body really loves to create. So if I get up and I'm like, I would like to work today, and it's all creation. Then I can get the work. I just love it. You know, I love doing
Yeah.
I love getting stuff done. I love getting stuff finished, and that's fantastic. And then there are days where like I'm dead to the world. And I'm like,
And it's so hard to show up.
like it's just
Truly.
not gonna happen today.
No, no. And I think that's the point when you do energy work, though. Like, people don't realize this is not just, I mean, I'm sure it's hard to do a normal job, like a customer service job, because I did it myself. It is hard, but I think it's a different navigation trying to do energy work when your energy is whack. Like, I just refuse to do it because, simply fact, I'm not putting anything on anybody else. I'm not opening up any more for myself. I'm not adding any more to my plate to transmute. You can all feck off. I'm going to just deal with this on my own. And that, like you say, I think about rescheduling it, and they end up rescheduling with me, and I'm like, thanks, universe, because it's a higher self-knowing. Higher self-knowing, like, I'm not in the right place. And it's happened so many times with me and you when we've had a video scheduled, and one of us is like, oh, it's just not working today. And then in reflection, it just wasn't energetically aligned that day for the right vibe. And that's exactly how it's meant to be. And that, again, is a different layer of trust, because it's knowing that if we were in like a professional world, it's like, oh, well, I've cancelled or I've rescheduled a few times. It looks unprofessional. But when you work with energy, you have a knowing that it's like, yeah, it's cool. We'll work next week.
Something's going to work or something's not going to work. You're not, and we don't force it. That's the thing with me too. I'm like, I'm not going to force something that's not in alignment for myself. That's not where I want to be in my current existence. But allowing free flow, I do that with my clients. There are days where I'm like, nope, or they cancel, or like sometimes I'll have like a whole week where I'm like, I know that's a week off that I need to like recover from something. I won't have people book, and then I'll just, so I just go with the flow of the universe and allow that to be. If I'm not in a space to do energetic work, I'm going to my cave, everybody. Don't know when I'm coming out. So
yeah. And I miss being able to do that. Not gonna lie, I do miss that ability at the moment. Sometimes I desperately need rest, but the physical body isn't allowed with the two tiny humans. And definitely not having a village, I'm noticing it way more than usual. I don't think I ever really thought about it before having kids. Like, I definitely thought about living in community and villages and thinking like, oh, wouldn't it be nice? But man, I don't think I realised how deconstructed society truly is, without a village and support. And I'm sure there is other mums watching this, and you are not alone if you are also struggling. There is nothing wrong with you if you find it very hard sometimes, or if you're very overwhelmed, or if you're not the mum you thought you'd be or the mum you want to be. Like, this society is not in any way set up to support mothers, to help create the village, to help create the structure of love and soft energy for us to rest. Just that thought of being able to retreat to a cave. I think every mum knows that when you're sick, when you're mentally not well, or when you're processing, like, there is so much need to be able to just heal. And yet somehow we just kind of learn to heal on the go, stood up, just figuring it out along the way, and it's a really weird world. Being a mum, it's a beautiful one. It's a very weird one, very lonely, very different, and a world that no one really understands, because no one really talks about it. So it's very quiet, and so that's why I wanted to mention that if you are feeling like that at the moment, because I think everyone's feeling overwhelmed. As we've mentioned, this theme of the video is trusting through the overwhelm, surrendering through it. But I think as a mum, I'm not comparing it and I'm not adding it to anyone else's thing, but just when you've got your own shit going on and then other humans shit as well, literally most times as well, no joke. And then you've got all these different layers. It's like, wow, this is a total different level of burnout I've never experienced before. And so don't feel guilt, shame, anything else. If you are struggling to navigate this overwhelming chapter right now, reach out to any support system that you have, get outside, ring a friend. Parenting in nature is always less overwhelming. So get to the forest, get to the field, find some nature and take the kids there if you have your little babies, because that really does help. It's an overwhelming time for everybody. You're not alone. That's basically my point. Don't think you're alone if you're struggling right now.
Thank you so much for that message. And I'm not pretending to know what y'all are going through. I don't have any kids. I've had partners who have, and I'm like, kudos to you too. Stop, man.
It's a funny old human experience. Oh, it is indeed. Like, it's one of the most beautifulest things ever. Like, there's no love on earth quite matches up to it, in my opinion. But also then there is like no challenge on earth that quite matches up to it. So it's kind of like the extremes of both balled into one at the extremely fast-paced time that you feel like you have to cherish every millisecond and not have a second for yourself. So it's just the weirdest experience, but in the most beautiful way. But yeah, motherhood. Have fun.
And no, you're not alone. I appreciate it so much, by the way. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm just having an overstimulated day. On other days, I'm like, oh, it's so wonderful. But yeah, definitely having a support or, female sisterhood is what I'm missing a lot. Like motherhood, sisterhood, grandmahood, auntyhood, whatever the word is, all them women. I just feel like we don't have them bonds anymore. And I definitely feel the lack of it in society. I have a lot of people that love me, but nobody has that capacity for each other. And it's sad. And I think that's something we need to build towards, is just reaching out, checking in with new mums, with older, elderly people, with people that are mentally struggling. Anyone that you might think just needs a little text or a little message, or do you fancy going on a walk? Them little things can make the world of difference. And if you are one of these people that needs it, just ask maybe someone, do you fancy going on a walk? Can I come around for a little bit? Don't feel like a burden if you need help right now.
Yeah, for sure. And for those of you who are mothers, and how I perceive this, because I really have a lot of respect for you guys, and it's always a big learning lesson for me. I'm always personally, if I have the energy and space for it, asking how I can help, because I have roommates, I have different friends that have kids, and all of them are single. So like even a random, like, I appreciate that you're a mom, I see you and I love you, like shifts the frequency really quickly.
Yes.
And like,
wow, it does.
From my perspective, you guys really like it. It helps.
Yeah, it really does. Like, I was out the other day. I had 2 push chairs because I was getting, one's a car seat and I had the other push chair. And I was trying to like push the push chair, and then I had the baby in the sling. And this woman just looked at me and she came and she tapped my shoulder and she was like, "You're doing an amazing job. You should be so proud." And I was like, thanks. Like, thanks, man. And I really needed that moment, because I felt like, whoa, it was. And then I had some really hard days, and I had a really hard day where there was everything going on. Phoenix fell off the chair, the juice was all over, the babies were screaming, and most people in the room just were looking and staring. And I just kind of thought to myself, like, even before being a mum, I remember feeling like you say, do you need anything? Like, anytime someone had a baby, I was always like, do you need any food making? Do you need me to come around and clean up, or like take the dog for a walk? Like always just trying to be supportive to that person rather than like for the baby, because the baby's sound, mate. It's got its mum. As long as the mum's all right, the baby's good. You kind of need to hold the mum and the dad and the family and stuff, whoever's the partners, the families. And yeah, I think that's the thing, just having that little mention, little comment. And like I said, this is not just to mums, it's just because it's my experience right now, but anyone that's a carer, anyone that's struggling themselves, anyone that you even think, man, you're doing a good job right now, just let them know, because it really makes a big difference.
It shifts a lot. And that's the kind of community that I want. You and I have talked about this before. Like, because if we were living close to each other, I would have such a grand time being like, can we go for a walk?
I know. And Phoenix loves you so much. He's like, really takes a while to warm up to people. And he met Z and he's like, oh, you my dance buddy? It was like dancing in the living room. Like, let's go.
I think about him all the
It's so
time. I'm like,
beautiful.
I love you. I can't wait till the next time I get to see you.
It's so beautiful. And that's the thing. We have community now, but it's currently through Zoom. And this is the same with anyone watching this. You know, I remember meeting the community online for the first time and thinking like, wow, there's actually more of us. You know, I was thinking about the protests in London where I first went to and met a few people. And I remember feeling that for the first time, like, oh my God, I'm not alone here, you know, and this is not just me. And that is a powerful feeling to know that you're not alone. There is a community. And I do hope that in my lifetime, in my children's lifetime, that they will have a totally different experience to having children and having a family that I will, and they will have more of a village because my experience is better than my parents. And so I'm hoping that theirs is better than mine. And so each journey is a, you know, a learning experience, but it's on us to create that
Yeah.
for sure.
It is. And I mean, that's where I'm heading into. That's what I want, the frequency that I want to bring in. You know, with my roommates' kids, like I love them to death. I know when they're going to come. It's like every other week. And so I get really excited and I get the things ready. And I realize for me, like going into that, because it is something that's exciting for me, they love that stabilizing point. I'll come in, I
Yeah.
play with them. You know, we can go swimming, we can go do the things. I can pick them up sometimes. And I appreciate that. Like, and that's the type of relationship that I have with my
Yeah.
roommate. So like those are the types of things that make me excited and where I want to be because I love it. I love it with some of the other people in my complex too, where I'm like, hey, I'm gonna
I love that though. I love that. You're like little Z super nanny. She's like, I'm here, super nanny. Crystal's like that though. Crystal's so beautiful. Every time I meet up with Crystal, she's like little super nanny. And that's the thing. Some of us are just born. I'm more like I always seem to be drawn to help the mum. So when I'm around people that have just gone through that, or you know, I used to be a carer for elderly and physically unable in certain situations, and so I remember like I'm always kind of more about helping create that grounding point, like you said, being that little grounding force, you know. But I love kids, but I do always seem to end up being the more helping their environment be more stable rather than being the little one. Again, though, that's probably to do with my inner child. So a little bit of my own reflection there.
yeah.
I was like, oh shit, yeah, maybe that's because I'm not very allowing my own inner child to play. Maybe they're like, that girl's not allowed to play out. Oh, funny. Funny, funny. Well, it's been a nice session today. I've
Yeah.
genuinely enjoyed
Good chatting.
sometimes not having, yeah, sometimes it's nice to just flow with the energies. You know, we had a little bit of an idea of what we were talking about, but sometimes it's nice to just talk about real stuff too, real life, real
Yep.
things going on, you know, because I had a feeling maybe other people are experiencing this burnout, overwhelm, frustration, feeling guilty about feeling that way, and, you know, just all the feels right now. And yeah, so like I said, just want to kind of mention that a little bit. Maybe we could do a little I've forgotten the
We're
word.
gonna
Heart
bring it in,
exercise.
everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Let's call it that. Let's call it a bring it in. We're gonna do a bring it in now. Yeah, let's do that. Do
Yeah, let's do that.
you want me to do it, or are you doing it, or we're both doing it? Just going with the flow.
Just gonna go with the
I'll
flow.
let you.
I'll start.
I'll
Maybe
let you
you can
start. Yeah,
you can
you
go
feel more ready than
all
me.
right. Okay. Everybody just get very seated and settled and take a few really big deep breaths. Just get some life force into your body with those breaths all the way down out your feet. And just getting heart centered for a moment, focusing in that space. And also just giving yourself a second to ask your body, your system, your soul what it needs right now in the moment. If it's feeling overwhelmed or stressed or there's so much uncomfortable in the unknown, what do you need right now? Good. And as you're doing that, I'm just going to ask that everybody do an intentional callback of all of their energy from all places, spaces, times, dimensions, back to the point of creation. Just gathering all aspects of yourself to come close to you in a way that's with ease and grace and what your body can handle so that we can fill your cup. Good. And a deep breath into that space. And I'm going to pass it on to you, Anya.
Beautiful. So I want us now to just Continue breathing into this space, just allowing all that beautiful work He's just allowed us to be open to process through the human body. And I would like us to take all background noises, anything that's around us as part of this experience, knowing that we are here today to surrender to the unknown and surrender to all the different navigations that this human experience brings us. And I want us to focus into a time where we do feel overwhelmed, burnt out. And I want you to find the peace from an external perspective that you need in that time. Find the peace and put a colour to it. That may be blue, green, yellow. Attach a colour to that beautiful frequency of peace and calm. So anytime that you feel that overwhelm, that stress, that burnt out energy, you can invite that colour to come down from the top of your head and into your physical body, into your heart and fingertips, spreading around each and every part of your body, each and every cell down to your toes. Just allowing that frequency to be fully encompassed in the human body with a true vibration of serenity. So anytime you are feeling overwhelmed, I want you to think about a time where you felt overwhelmed today, yesterday. And I want you to give your previous self an overflow of that energy, of that calm. Help them through that moment in time with more ease and more joy. And now I want you to ask your higher self to have that colour on standby and on remembrance for any time that you feel overwhelmed, burnt out, struggling or stressed. And I want you to allow that colour to come in and allow it to stabilise the frequency of the human body. And remember that you are not alone, you are never alone. You walk with an army of spirit, loved ones, animals, angels, guides. You are a powerful being of creation. And it's time that your humans started to remember that. And when you're ready, I want you to allow your soul to just slowly drift back down into the human experience. Going back down into the body and wiggling the fingers and toes. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. Just allowing a slow integration back into the human experience. And giving the body a little wiggle when you come round and maybe getting a drink if you need one. And just allowing that frequency to remain there throughout the rest of the day and whenever you may need it.
Yeah, that was beautiful. Thank you so much.
Beautiful. No, thank you. That was really nice.
All right,
I
guys.
really enjoyed
Love
that.
you. And as always,
Love you all, guys.
yeah, as always, take a look at your own perspective and question.
Question everything.
Question everything. What is the best for you and what feels in most alignment for you. So we love you guys so
Beautiful.
much.